Hello, my name is Matthew Holman. I'm on the leadership team for the Silicon Slopes marketing chapter, and I'm very excited to welcome you to today's event. We're very lucky to have Megan Pratt with us. I want to start by, and we're going to be talking product marketing. So I want to start with, does anybody know what product marketing is as opposed to just like marketing your product? Okay. All right. Would you be so bold, sir, as to provide us with a definition of product marketing?
Me on the spot now.
Absolutely.
That's the way to do it. Product marketing is marketing that is specific around individual product launches. So if you have multiple products, there might be a different product marketer for each product who does the research and puts together documentation and press content specific to each of those products.
Cool. Awesome. Now, anybody else want to add to that? What I think is so cool about product marketing for myself is that it means a little bit different depending on who you are as a marketer. So I'm really excited myself to sit here today and learn from Megan. Just to go through a couple things. This is the schedule. This is our agenda today. So we're going to go for about an hour, including a Q&A, and then have a little bit more networking opportunity. I do want to start with, if there's anybody here who is currently looking for a job, we like to highlight anybody who's currently looking for work, if you want to raise your hand. Okay, all right. Anybody hiring in case somebody has a friend who's looking for a job? Okay, this is a tight group. They're here to learn because they've got a job where they need product marketing at. I'm excited for this. Okay, and then also our next event is scheduled for May 17th with Alex MacArthur, talking about the art of calculated risks and accelerating growth. If any of you know Alex, he's just going to be telling you to do funny Facebook video ads. So you should definitely come. Let's see. Does this thing, let's just go like this. Okay, we have our sponsor for lunch today is Creatively. And we have Damian Dayton here from Creatively. Damian, do you want me to play the video or you want to come up? What?
Yeah, I'll come up just quickly. You may have seen our work if you spend time on Facebook and YouTube. Like, why is this guy here? We have helped a lot of the consumer product goods in Utah launch, from Owlet, Kizik, Gab, Thread Wallets, and then we have some of our own brands like Pillow Cube, Stair Slide, Boulder Play, Cold Case Ice Cream, and we use a video strategy, but we're increasingly seeing executive business behavior on LinkedIn mirror consumer behavior on Facebook. And so I wanted to come and just sponsor lunch because we believe that some of our strategies can function in the business-to-business world on some of the emerging business social platforms. So this is an unfinished commercial, and I'm like, we'll show everybody our rough draft. You guys are the first people to see a commercial for ourselves. The first one we've ever done. We've always just relied on good work to bring us work, and so we make long, silly commercials. Oh. They're not all silly, but they're a little bit silly. I didn't see it there. So. Because it's boring. Thank you guys so much, and enjoy lunch.
Here we go.
Oh, is this your ad? I didn't see it there. Because it's boring. We are Creatively, and we're bad at blending in. We make funny ads that last 2 to 4 minutes. They grab attention, they keep attention, and let your product shine.
But can you make a serious ad?
Sure, but nobody's gonna watch it. We've done hundreds of tests and found that comedy performs best.
Can't I just get an influencer to do it for me?
You can, but that won't scale. Plus, so many brands are doing it. It's beginning to bug consumers. Shoot, you need something that cuts through the noisy sameness. You need Creatively.
How about a short ad?
Listen, if you hate something, it doesn't matter if it's 30 seconds or 3 minutes. Oh, gosh, I hate exercising. But if you love something, you can't get enough. So if people aren't watching your ad, not the lane. Love. You need to earn the view, like I earned this. At Creatively, we love skippable ads. With skippable ads, you only pay for people who make it past the first 15 seconds. On average, ads only retain about 7% of viewers. Creatively ads earn viewers. We shoot 8%. So if we throw 1 million people at your ad and 20% 1,000 viewers who want to spend 3 minutes with your brand, listen to your message, and turn into a customer, you get targeted performance and inexpensive branding in one campaign. A wise man once said, the secret to life is to find out who you are and do it on purpose. And that man was Dolly Parton. At Creatively, we go to great lengths to understand you, and then purpose is if you trust your product, trust our process. We make little companies big and big companies bigger.
If you're so great at growing brands, then why don't you do it for yourself?
Good question, Rando Camo Guy. Creatively has started their own companies and grows them the same way they want to grow you. Other agencies say they'll get you big wins, but they've never taken the big swings they're asking you to take. I mean, would you trust a mechanic who doesn't own a car? Growing companies is what we do. Creatively started Pillow Cube and grew them from 30,000 to 30 million. They acquired StairSlide and grew them from 6 figures to 7 figures in less than a year. Heck, they did $1 million in sales just over the Black Friday weekend. That's just 3 days. We worked on our business engine, and we know how to get it humming. Heck, you could even say we wrote the manual. Our Go Fast, Grow Fast formula has a recipe for whatever stage you're in and exactly what you need to get to the next level. Our real passion is helping brands grow, brands like yours. And as we say around here, your success is the hero of our story. But don't take my word for it. Let's see what these nice people have to say.
And it was really encouraging to know that we were working with a partner that was as invested in our success as we are.
So I know who all these people are with their.
I cry every time we make people money. We've done it with all these companies.
So why doesn't everyone do it?
Because it doesn't work for everybody. We've developed a proprietary 5D formula that helps us identify brands that are ready for explosive growth. We look for brands and products that are disruptive, democratic, demonstrable, desirable, deliverable, and have the dollars for distribution.
Hey, that's like 7 Ds.
I know, it makes us sound picky, but that's only because we are picky. We want to work with brands that we know we can grow. It's kind of our thing.
So can I get a pamphlet or something?
No, but you can talk to one of our business development experts for a free 5D evaluation and see if explosive growth is in your future. So, if you are ready for massive growth, give us a call.
That's fun. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but would you say one of the ultimate product marketing flexes is a marketing agency like launching their own product line to prove how good they are at marketing it? I mean, it's certainly interesting. Okay, so without any further ado, I'd like to welcome Megan Pratt on the stage. Okay. Megan is a very experienced product marketer. She's done a ton of work for some companies you may have heard of, like AdRoll, Elise, and KSL. And without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. First off, I want to congratulate Charlie on that awesome description of product marketing. That description's what, like 4 years in the making? Charlie and I worked together at AdRoll, where he was in sales and I was in product marketing. So I'm doing something right if a salesperson can tell me what product marketing does. Thank you. Let me get rid of this notification real quick. Cool. All right, well, thanks everybody for joining me today. Let's jump in. So a little personal introduction here. I was born and mostly raised here in Utah, spent a little bit of time in Illinois as well, but actually went to elementary school, junior, and part of high school right around the corner in American Fork. Spent some time in Kaysville as well. Outside of work, you can kind of see some of the things I'm into. Those are my 2 fur babies up in the top right corner, my 2 human children down here in the lower right corner, and then anything that gets me outside. I've been married for almost 13 years. That's my husband, Mike. Yeah, I've spent almost over 10 years in marketing, most of that in tech, and most of that in product marketing. So I'm super excited to share what I've learned throughout that whole time. So with the topic as broad as product marketing, you can imagine that it's very meaty. There's so many different directions we could take this, lots that we could cover. What I'm about to embark on is a high-level overview of just about everything you need to know. So it's gonna be not only kind of like quick and dirty, but it's also just, I'm hoping, going to be the beginning of a lot of your journey. So at the end, I'll give you some information for where to continue that journey. So if at any point in the middle you start to feel lost, you start to feel like too much information too fast, totally fine. My hope is that you can take like 1 to 2 things that you can implement right away. I've tried to make it pretty tangible, pretty instructive, with some things that you can implement in your life right now. So let's start with a definition, building off of what Charlie told us. So product marketing lives at the center of a lot of things that happen at the organization. So we take in customer insights, market insights, and product insights, and then we put them into all of these different areas you see over on the right-hand corner. Sales enablement, positioning, which is like the context, messaging, what are we going to say about this product and who are we going to say it to, and then content, actually creating the content, whether it be for sales, the website, blog posts, ad deliverables, all of those good things. Another way to describe it is that product marketing fits anywhere product, customer, or market information goes or flows. So anywhere we're either learning or talking about our customer, product, or market, product marketing has either been involved or should be involved. All right, so let's jump into step 1. So I've divided everything you need to know, your entire process for product marketing into 8 different steps. And that's what we're gonna jump into today. So these are the steps that I personally follow as a consultant or as, a new director of product marketing, jumping into a new environment for the very first time. It's never too late to do these things either. So if you are not new to your environment, but you want to start implementing product marketing, the same process applies. All right, so first we're going to start with assessing our organization. So one of the most critical and most overlooked parts of product marketing is this cross-functional collaboration and stakeholder collaboration. So unlike, I guess, a lot of parts of marketing, we are constantly talking to other parts of the organization. So when I first join an organization, I sit down with all of my stakeholders. I pick a couple people from each of the different teams, and I just listen to them speak. I just ask what their biggest pain points are, and I try to, in my head, brainstorm some ways that I can help with those. What I'm trying to do with this effort is really develop my own definition of product marketing for this organization. We'll dig into that a little bit more later, but really what you're trying to define is what value is product marketing going to bring to this organization? What is like the acute need that we need to solve right now? And then we're gonna get stakeholder buy-in. So with those stakeholder interviews, I talked a little bit about how I pick 1 to 2 people from each team. That's gonna be product, sales, marketing most often. Sometimes you'll also be working directly with the executive team. And then you're just gonna ask about priorities, concerns, maybe previous expectations about product marketing. I think it's been touched on before, but product marketing can be different from product marketer to product marketer. It can be handled differently. It can be different from organization. People are gonna have different, preconceived notions. And then you're just gonna listen, learn, and ask questions. This is how I set up my definition for product marketing. Like I said, this deck will be coming to you, so you don't have to copy this down. But I will fill out something like this when I'm kind of creating my definition. So this is what I mean when I talk about that. So we are going to, you'll fill that in, and we're gonna do that by, so that we can do X, Y, and Z. All of this is filled out by kind of some of those things that you heard. So if you talk to your sales leader, and your sales leader says, we're bringing in, we have a lot of great leads, we just have trouble closing. Our win rates are suffering. Then you might say, fantastic. What I think we need to do is create and execute a sales enablement strategy that's really going to help us to serve the sales team's needs so that we can increase those win rates to X%. And then you're gonna take this to your stakeholders, and then anytime you have a project that needs doing, you're gonna pass it through this filter and say, how does this help me get to this goal? And then anytime someone brings you a project that needs doing, you're gonna say, does this help increase win rates? It's gonna help with a lot of that kind of whiplash, I guess, that we in marketing, and specifically product marketing, get a lot. If you first build out this definition, second, get the buy-in from folks. Cool, we're on to step 2. Any questions about assessing the organization before I'm gonna try and not make it too rapid fire, but there's a lot to cover, so I wanna make sure we get to it all. Great. So once you've assessed the organization, you've kind of taken a minute to get your feet under you, you've developed your own definition, you have some ideas for the strategies that you need to employ, you're going to set a full strategy. So in my experience, you need all three of these things for a full and complete strategy. So you need a very high-level ideal state. This is kind of like if you're looking at a map, this is your destination. This is like, we're going to Hawaii. Fantastic. Where are we going in Hawaii? How are we going to get there? Who's buying the tickets, you know? A lot of questions come after that, but at least we know we're going to Hawaii. So we've got our ideal state. Then we have priorities to make it real. So that's your to-do list before you get to your trip. I need to pack my swimsuit. I need to buy tickets. I need to get a babysitter for my kids. You know, I need all of these things that I need to do in order to make this ideal state come true. And then we're gonna mark the path to get there. So then we're gonna say, great, I'm gonna have my husband get the babysitter. I'm gonna make the packing list, you know. My husband's going to buy the tickets. You know, we're gonna kind of divvy out these projects, and we're gonna maybe talk about how we're gonna actually get this done, and then say, okay, great, we've got 3 months till our trip. Here's what needs to get done between then and now. So your ideal state is really, it's specific, but it's also visionary, and I'll give you an example here in a second. It needs to be very realistic, but it also needs to be goal-oriented and strategic. So here's an example that I've actually used in the past. So this would be kind of like our charter, our ideal state for product marketing. So our customers, prospects, and employees will be able to clearly articulate the value, benefits, and top features of our product. This will make our marketing budget go further, our sales leads convert faster, and our customers stay around longer. So you can see how that's visionary, but it's also very specific. It tells us exactly where we're headed. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna pick a couple priorities to make it real. So we're not gonna overcommit ourselves. We're not gonna choose a bunch of things. We're gonna be very intentional about choosing like 3, maybe 5 things that make this real. So if I'm choosing that ideal state, I want everybody to be able to articulate the value, benefits, and top features of our product. These are the things that I might choose. So I might choose a win-loss analysis process. I'm gonna go and talk to a bunch of customers and ask them why they're buying or not buying so that I understand all of that, and I can take that back into our messaging and positioning. I'm gonna identify website headlines to test. I'm gonna create website content that addresses objections, benefits, competitors, and then I'm gonna work with our content and growth teams to identify 3 to 5 tactics we can use to put this into play. This is where the rubber starts to meet the road, and you start to actually put this into practice. This is a plan that you can take to your boss, to the rest of your team, and say, here's where we're headed. Do you spot any problems with this? What else do you think we should be doing? Do you disagree with this? Which brings you to the next step. So when we're laying out the actual plan, this is a great time to involve your team if you work with a team, or just to be very specific about what each of these things is going to take, whether it be hiring consultants, whether it's going to be time on your schedule, just to make sure that we are leaving no stone unturned here, and we are very specific about what we'll need from ourselves, the organization, and our team to get these things done. So it gets pretty granular. It can get pretty granular, but it's well worth the effort to kind of lay out your plan. We're already on to step 3. Any questions about what we've talked about so far? I'll breathe for just a second. Cool. All right. So you'll notice that the first 2 steps are really just all about kind of setting the strategy. We actually haven't done any strictly product marketing work. So and there's a reason why step 3 comes when it does. So step 3 is talking to customers. You might expect step 3 to be like, we're gonna do a messaging and positioning strategy, or we're gonna create sales enablement resources. None of that is gonna hit the way that it should if we don't first include at least a strategy to be talking to customers. Talking to customers is a core piece of product marketing, and something that product marketing does better than anybody else in the organization, and a key piece of value that product marketing brings to the organization. So when I'm thinking about customer insights and talking to customers, it really comes into play in all of these areas you see around the circle. So if I'm the owner of customer insights, I can apply that in product marketing or product road mapping. I can use it to create a narrative, obviously. I can use it specifically in sales resources, not just in customer quotes, but also what resources are we designing? What questions are customers asking? How can we hit on the reasons they're either purchasing or not purchasing? Content creation, positioning, which we'll talk a little bit more about all of these things later, but positioning specifically, and marketing strategies. What channels can we use to reach people? When I'm designing a strategy for listening to customers, these are kind of the two boxes that I think about. So you can listen to customers in a passive way, as long as you're kind of harnessing those, or you can listen to customers in an active way. I recommend that you do include both of those ways, but if you don't have the resources to conduct an entire win-loss analysis, it's still worth calling out all of the channels that you probably already have at your disposal to listen to customers. If you just kind of consolidate that information, consider yourself the owner of that information and find ways to use it. So if you do have the resources, though, to specifically interview customers, here's some things to keep in mind and places where I've seen people and myself go wrong in the past. So the first most critical part of interviewing customers is picking the right customers. So you really need to identify a focus and then figure out who the right customers are to speak to in order to fulfill that focus. So if our problem here, back to kind of the ideal state that we talked about earlier, is to improve those win rates, why don't we go out and talk to 7 to 12 customers who have recently purchased and ask them why they've purchased. Maybe let's talk to another 7 to 12 who haven't purchased and understand why they haven't purchased. From that, we might understand we're targeting the wrong market here. All of these customers that didn't buy are distinctly different from the ones that did. Maybe we'll understand marketing channels better. Maybe it's a sales process thing. There could be any number of explanations. But once you dig into that and you're very specific about what we're looking for, that informs the customers you choose, the questions you ask, and the insights that you share after. And then making a plan for sharing insights is another critical piece. You know, I think we've all done kind of like these, or at least I have done these big research studies, or conducted a big project that we felt was really valuable, and then it just lives in our Google Drive. And everybody's like, why did you spend 3 months doing win-loss analysis? I've never heard about that. And it's, it can be very problematic. So making a plan for sharing those insights is critical as well. And the way that I think about that is, what do our stakeholders need from us? A through line in a lot of what I do as a product marketing leader is really thinking about my internal stakeholders, just like I think about my external customers. So I'm really trying to identify and serve their needs just as much as I'm trying to identify and serve our customers' needs. And what that leads to is specific plans for how we're going to share out the information that they need. So with marketing, a lot of us are marketers, so that one's probably a pretty easy leap. What does marketing need from this? Let's get some customer quotes, some competitive insights, channels to try, pain points. What does sales need? Again, that one's pretty clear cut as well. They want some resources. They want sales training. They want talking points. Product maybe is a little bit less familiar to some of us, but if you can share things like, hey, I just spoke to a bunch of customers, and one thing that came through is that if we had X, Y, or Z feature, or X, Y, or Z feature was improved, we would increase win rates. That's like gold to product managers. And I can say that because my husband's a product manager, so we had this debate over dinner. Cool, on to step 4. Any questions about customer insights or gathering and sharing those? Again, very quick and dirty explanation. I could probably spend an hour on any one of these steps, so I'm trying to restrain myself. Cool, I'm gonna grab a drink real quick. Next, we're gonna talk about positioning and messaging. This is the piece that a lot of people think about when they think about product marketing. So we think a lot about what's the context that we're setting and what are we saying to those people. So let's walk through each of those pieces because they are often linked. We often say messaging and positioning, but they're two distinct projects and disciplines that I think it's worth calling out. So positioning is the context that you place around your product. So we'll walk through exactly what that means, But then inside of that context, messaging is how you want to be perceived. So that includes the things that you're saying, down to the specific words, the way that you're talking to people, the channels that you use, the tone that you use, all of those different types of things. So some of you may have heard of April Dunford. If you haven't, I would definitely add it to your to-be-read list. It's a very quick and easy book. Her book is called Obviously Awesome, and it goes through a very easy positioning framework. To be honest with you, you could totally just Google it and find a graphic that looks exactly like this that will tell you what you need to know. But her process is in 5 steps, sometimes 6. I'll tell you about the 6th step in just a sec. But first, you identify competitive alternatives. And the key here that's different from a lot of what we do is the question is, if we didn't exist, what would our customers do? So that opens up the world of competitive alternatives from who are, the other products out there that are serving this exact need to what would customers do without us? And that answer might be do nothing. That might be they would do this manually. It could be any number of things that they might do. Once you understand your competitive alternatives, then you move on to your key unique attributes. So what's different about us than all of these? It could be your service, could be a feature that you have, could be the way that you serve the need, it could be any number of things there as well. And then the value that those unlock. So that first one in pink, the unique attributes, can be down to the feature level. But this value enabled is a really critical piece when we start to think about messaging, because that's where you really want to focus a lot of your effort, is what is the value that our product unlocks for customers? Are we saving them time? If so, how much and how specifically are we doing that? Are we saving them effort? Is it more of an emotional benefit? What are we doing in their lives, whether it's a B2B product or a B2C product, that really makes their life better than before we came into the picture? And then you're going to think about customers who care. So traditionally, we might call this like an ICP, an ideal customer profile. Could be specific types of companies, specific roles at that company, specific people, and then the markets that we win. So that might be like, if we're talking about tech, it might be like your category that you're looking for, but it also could be specifically like defining that market. The other thing that's sometimes added on, and I find really helpful, is thinking about trends. So what are some current trends that help us to kind of understand how we fit? How do we fit right in this context right now? The rest of it's pretty long term, but the trends is something interesting to think about, maybe on a quarterly basis as well. The other thing I like to add on to my positioning framework is a jobs to be done framework. Traditionally, this is saved for like our product teams, but even something as simple as just this one sentence: when situation happens, I want to, motivation, so that I can achieve a desired outcome. Adding that on to either a positioning framework or a persona can really clarify that and really help us to get focused on the value that we're unlocking for customers. Plus, it wins us points with our product marketers or product managers, which is always a good thing. Great. So what we're going to want to do with all of that is we're going to want to share it for stakeholder feedback. I know that that's scary, and I hate it too, but we have to share it. We have to gather feedback, highlight differences, and we have to expect that there's going to be some misalignment. This is a very strategic thing. This is something that we're going to have to work with our executive team to clear up that misalignment. Most often what I find is this is incredibly helpful in clearing up things like the sales team thinks we're going after this ICP, but the marketing team's actually targeting this ICP. Well, great. That's why we have problems with, our leads not being worked. We solved that problem, or at least we understand it now. And then we're going to gather data, test, and optimize. Great. So now that we have our positioning strategy, now that we understand our context, we are going to apply that to messaging. So I go into these in a lot more detail in some other contexts, but these are kind of the 5 things that I keep in mind when I'm thinking about messaging. And messaging could be anything from let's redesign our homepage to let's write a new white paper to we're writing content for social media. What I'll do is I will kind of document our messaging, and I'll show you how I do that, but in a way that is shared internally for everybody to revisit. So when I'm redesigning messaging, refreshing messaging for an organization, I'll just pick one deliverable. That deliverable could be the sales deck. Most often it is the sales deck. We fix the sales deck, and then we can expand that onto everything else. We're going to consider the customer. Again, that's why we listen to customers first. That's why we do positioning first. We're going to lead with value as opposed to talking about our features. We're going to talk to our customers about the value we unlock. We're not going to tell them about our shiny new toy because honestly, they don't care about that until you've told them what it's going to do for them. There's always a time and a place to talk about, your AI or whatever it is, but it's just not right up front. Speaking of AI, we're going to be jargon-free. We're going to skip the jargon except for in very specific concentrated instances that it makes sense for our audience. If we're in a more we're talking to developers, for instance. We're going to write for a middle schooler. It's really easy to do this if you pass all your copy through something like Grammarly or Hemingway. They have settings that you can kind of set for like which grade level you want to target towards, things like that. And then we are going to understand that messaging is never done. So good enough is our goal. We just want to get something out there. The best way for us to understand what perfection actually means is to test it against the person who really matters, which is our customer. Great. Messaging and positioning is behind us. We are on to go-to-market strategy and launch. Any questions before I move on? Stunned silence? Perfect, I'll take it. Go-to-market strategy. This is another piece. When you talk to people about product marketing, they'll think about specific product launches, which is great because that's a lot of the more public work that we do. A lot of what we've talked about before this really is kind of like in our own heads, amongst our own close team, things like that. This is where the rubber meets the road in terms of cross-functional alignment and actually providing value to the organization. So go-to-market strategy and launch strategy are two different things that are very interrelated. Go-to-market strategy is more on a company basis. Launch strategy is everything that takes a specific product from released to launched. So when we think about that, there's lots of different parts for everyone to play. Maybe not specifically at like a small startup, but there are lots of different parts for people to play. So product marketing owns the whole process, alignment, all of that stuff. Product is very specifically focused on when is this thing ready for people to use it? What is this thing and how are we defining that? They're working with our developers. Marketing's thinking about like, okay, how do we get this out to our customers? What are the channels we can use? What's our budget? What's gonna work here? And then sales is focused on pitching, the sales process, actually engaging customers. Hopefully all of those pieces are, all of the parts of that puzzle are speaking to each other, which is what we're gonna talk a little bit about. So this is a screenshot of a framework that I'm happy to share with anybody that wants it. I'll give you, we can get in touch at the end. But it's just a spreadsheet that I've developed that's like a product launch framework. So we first figure out how much of a priority actually is this thing. If we're launching a bunch of features in a year, not everything can deserve, all of those pieces in pink or red over there on the left-hand side. We just don't have the resources for it. So how are we prioritizing things? Once we know the priority of that thing, then we can figure out exactly what deliverables need to happen, exactly what needs to happen for this launch to go well. And then this framework also backs us out into specific things that need to be done at a specific time. So I have it on a bi-weekly basis because what I'll do is I'll take this framework out to my team and say, okay, everybody, and my team is the cross-functional team, product marketing, sales, success, sometimes an executive team member, and I'll say, great, this is a priority one launch. This is what this thing is. Here's the messaging and positioning for this launch. Here's all the things that we need to do. Now let's get started. And if you do that, and if you do it correctly, and with enough kind of alignment and strategy behind it, I promise you this will be the most impactful thing that you can implement is a really well thought out product launch strategy. So that's kind of like how I approach launch strategy specifically, thinking about, and you can see here that we also talk about like, what does it take for us to kick off this launch strategy? Those pieces up there in red, I'm very clear with my product teams that I can't kick off my launch strategy until you have a specific deadline, or at least close. I always add time to their deadlines. Again, I'm married to a product manager, so I'm allowed to say that. And I won't start it either until we have a product brief established, you know? I know exactly what this thing is gonna be, and I know pretty close to when it's gonna launch. Then I can start my strategy, and it's gonna take about 8 weeks, so I need that. I need all the time I can get. Any questions about product launches? Yeah.
Are there any tools or technologies that you find to be particularly effective when it comes to product launch?
I just good old-fashioned Google Sheets, to be honest with you. That's what that's built in, is just a Google Sheet. I also usually will just create like a little Slack channel for everybody, and then whatever internal database that you use, even just like a Google Drive, where you can just throw every piece of documentation, add creative, everything for this launch in. But in my background, I've mostly been at startups where it's like, we've got to just make use of the resources that we've got. I know there are tools and technologies out there. If I was like a Notion wizard, I'm sure I would talk about a Notion board, but basically anything that just kind of keeps everything in one place. I think the critical piece here for product launches is just bringing everybody together on that bi-weekly basis and talking to people and saying, just as a reminder, you promised you would have this done, where are we at? And we can kind of raise those things. So it really is more about the communication, I think, than the tech, but anything that's gonna aid in that communication, I think would be great. So that's a non-answer answer for you. Okay, we're getting close to we have a couple more modules, or I guess steps here. So now, once we have kind of our product launch framework, we have our messaging and positioning, we have a good understanding of our customers, what's gonna come next, and really what's probably gonna come first, you're probably gonna get pulled into sales enablement before anything, and I'm sure I'm speaking to the choir here in a lot of ways. But one of the biggest needs in all of the organizations that I've worked in is enabling our sales and success teams. Sales teams are, I think I've talked about this in other kind of contexts, but when I come into an organization or I hear a sales team defined as like, they're such a scrappy bunch, they really just make do, what I hear immediately is like, oh, this is a sales team that needs enablement. This is a sales team that's gonna be hungry for a sales deck. They're probably working off something that they've created themselves, or was created 3 years ago and never updated and is kind of hodgepodge. They need one sheets. They need to know what our product does as it stands today. They need to understand our customer. I think it's wonderful for our sales teams to be scrappy, but I just don't want them to be like alone on an island, which is all too often what happens. Okay, so there are really two aspects when we think about sales enablement. So we think about sales fundamentals, which isn't necessarily a product marketing area to solve, and the part that is product marketing areas to solve, though, is that customer marketing, market, and product knowledge. And there's so much to be done there that we can solve a lot of problems just by covering that pink bucket. So when I think about customer market and product knowledge, there are really 3 ways to solve for that. So we can do kind of the traditional sit-down trainings where everybody blocks out an hour. Maybe if we're nice, we give people lunch. Everybody comes, everybody consumes information. They leave, they go about their lives. We can do that with resources, things like I mentioned, sales decks, one-sheets, case studies, or we can do it with feedback loops. Of course, it's best if we do all 3 of those, but if you can only do one, if you can only control maybe 1 or 2, those bottom 2, resources and feedback loops, will definitely get the job done. I know there's a lot of resistance to training specifically, and there are some ways that we can get that done as well. So because sales teams are busy, their time is literally money, what I've most often found helpful is what's referred to as just-in-time training. So we'll create lots of smaller trainings where it's like, I'm just gonna, if you can spend 2 minutes with me, I'll record a Loom video and show you how this new feature works. Not just how it works, but like, what are our customers saying about it? Why are we excited about it? Maybe I work with the product manager to do that, so they're getting exposure to other people in the organization as well. I put that in Slack, I put that in our sales enablement venue or whatever it is that we're using. I even put it in Google Drive. I put it everywhere that they could possibly find it. If if I have extra resources, I might use a solution that's called Guru. It's one that I really love. It connects into like your Gmail, it connects into Salesforce, it connects into everywhere, and it's very easily searchable for salespeople to just pull up like, great, I can copy and paste this exact language that I need about this feature or to cover this objection or whatever it is. Those just-in-time learnings and resources that connect into the places that your reps are already spending their time are going to be incredibly powerful. Resources is the second thing. I think one of the biggest problems with resources is that we try to create everything from our perspective, and then none of it gets used, and then we're like, well, you asked for a one sheet, and I gave you a one sheet, and you're not using the one sheet. And I think what the problem is, that problem can be solved by, again, listening to our stakeholders, creating very specific things, and then using feedback loops to figure out what we need to do next. I hate that that's kind of blurry. The perfectionist in me does not love that right now, but whatever. Feedback loops provide all of the information in alignment. Again, this is a really overlooked piece, I think, of product marketing. I think a lot of people hear product marketing or step into their first product marketing role and think, love it. I can manage a process. I can write things. I'm going to be a great product marketer. I think one of the biggest learning curves is figuring out like how actually to listen to internal stakeholders, how to listen to them critique your work, how to listen to them tell you what they need, even if it sounds like, you know, frustration and blame, and how to weed through that and figure out what people actually need. So when you provide training and resources, your job is not done. Your job is just beginning, and it really is your job then to ask for time in sales team meetings, or to hop into sales team Slack channels, or to have regular meetings with your sales leaders and say, how's it going? How's it working? We provided that one sheet. Do you have any feedback for me? I'd love to fix it. And then to actually do that, to actually prove that time and time again, you're on their team and you're willing to like provide the resources, fix the resources, be part of the process with them. All right, now we're on to step 7, assessing impact. Questions about sales enablement? Cool. So when we think about assessing impact, that can be a tricky one with product marketing, because product marketing isn't necessarily, we don't necessarily own a number. We don't own any specific KPIs, but that doesn't mean we're entirely off the hook. In fact, that makes that job a little bit trickier, because we have to find ways to assert and assess our own impact and kind of piggyback on other people's projects. We still really need to like understand what matters to the business. So that's part of what I'll do, is that kind of stakeholder assessment that we talked about in step 1, is I want to understand what metrics matter specifically to our sales team. What are they really worried about? What are they targeting towards? What's my demand gen person? What are they worried about? What are they targeting towards? And then I think about ways that I can connect all of the projects that I do to those things. So when I'm prioritizing a project, whether it's a product launch or win-loss analysis, I'll say, remember how you said that you're really struggling with conversion rates, demo rates on our website? This is going to help us understand that, and here's how. And then we kind of will track our efforts toward those things. We also want to get regular access to data, which it can be kind of a tricky thing as a product marketer. You have to explain sometimes why you need access to that data, why you need to be in the sales stand-up meeting where we talk about our pipeline, why you need to kind of be involved with those. It's not just for our own curiosity, it's actually to be helpful. I talked a little bit about connecting our influence to specific KPIs, and I think the last piece is something that I didn't cover though, thinking about feedback from revenue and sales teams. So as I say, like, I'm gonna do win-loss analysis, and that's gonna help us, you know, figure out why we're not getting as many demos as we'd like, be open to their feedback and saying, like, actually, that's not what I need. What I need is new copy for this landing page. Can we prioritize that? Or whatever it might be, and kind of having that very constructive debate with people. Great, we're on to step 8, the last and final step. It's just a quick one because it's talking about building a team. So just some quick pieces of information about how we build out product teams. So this is something that can be applicable whether you're a general marketing leader or whatever it might be. There are lots of different product marketers. There's lots of different ways that we can organize teams. And there's lots of different, I guess that means lots of different ways that we can kind of go wrong. So we really need to understand specifically how product marketing teams are built, how product marketers are built, and then assess our organization and understand where do we go from here. So the three main ways that we can build product marketing teams is by product line, by focus area, or by vertical or persona. So the first one is obviously the most common because we have one person for one product, or maybe it's one person for two products. Usually that's kind of the shakeout, is like one product marketer to every 2 or 3 product managers that you have. By focus area, that could be specifically like, we're trying to break into this new market. We're going to hire someone onto the product marketing team who has that market expertise, who we can teach them about launch strategy and things like that, but what they bring is kind of this deep understanding of finance or whatever it is. And then by vertical or persona. So again, we might think about like this person is very specifically focused on enterprise. This person's focused on mid-market. We know there are some distinctions there that we want to have people focusing on, and they're different enough that we need 2 different people for those. My preference is always going to be that first one, or kind of like a generalist product marketer. I think we talk a lot about like this T-shaped marketing professional, someone who can go pretty wide in a lot of areas, who understands launch strategy, messaging and positioning, a brief understanding of our audience and personas and all those things, but also can go very deep on product marketing strategy specifically. Okay, so I just talked through all of those. The other piece of advice I like to share with general marketers who are looking for a product marketer to join their organization is look in places that you might not expect. So some of the best product marketers that I've actually hired have a background in sales or success. Sales and success people make excellent product marketers because they have one of the key pieces that you can't teach people, which is customer empathy. It's really hard to teach that customer empathy. It's something you have to practice and develop and build up over years. And sales and success people kind of come to us with that baked in. So if you have a sales or success person that's looking to kind of expand their horizons, maybe looking for a new path, definitely jump on that. There are also communities and groups specifically dedicated to Product Marketing Alliance, Product Marketing Hive, those are 2. LinkedIn, straight up just searching for product marketers that are open to work, your network, and then of course I have to put in a plug for consultants as well. That is it. So I think we'll send out the slides and stuff, right? But if you need any resources or anything, find me on LinkedIn or email me. Yeah.
Could you tell us a little more about what you do at the Product Marketing House then?
Yeah, so I'm what I call a fractional product marketing leader. So what I had done several times before I kind of took my show on the road is I came into startups around Series A or Series B and really set up their product marketing strategies from the ground up. So this process that I just took you through is something that I would go through as an in-house person, and now I just do that on a consulting basis. So I'll come in and I'm kind of what I refer to as like a team captain. So I'm like, I don't know. The only sport I know is soccer, so you'll just have to hang with me here. I'm like your Megan Rapinoe, right? I can come in, I can call the plays. I've played the game for a little bit, have a few, injuries under my belt. Maybe I can help your team understand how to play the game, but I can also jump in and play the game myself. So that's a little bit of what I do. So all of these areas that I just talked about are included in that.
What do you think that most people get wrong when it comes to their product marketing? Most companies, most individuals?
Yeah, I think so. From my context, I think a lot of founders or general marketing leaders are just like, we need product marketing. And they don't exactly know what type of product marketer they need or how to kind of structure product marketing's world. So there's a lot of misunderstanding of what product marketing is there to do. So product marketing in those contexts is very undervalued and ends up just being kind of like a content house for sales, turning out one sheets and sales decks. And then you end up with a very frustrated product marketer and a very frustrated team because they're like, what are you even doing here? We could hire, we could outsource all of this work that you're doing. So I think misunderstanding kind of the strategic value of product marketing, the customer listening, the messaging and positioning, the launch strategy stuff, and kind of all the behind the scenes work, and just seeing kind of those external tangible things, not giving room and space for a great one-sheeter to be based in like those customer insights and having to prioritize that too. So those are kind of some of the things that I've noticed.
I didn't ask this early on because I didn't want to slow you down. You're going awesome. But when you're talking about your customer interviews, any advice about increasing response rates from interview prospects, or how you can just maybe speeding up the
Yeah.
path to getting in front of prospects?
For sure. Yeah, so I'm actually undergoing some win-loss analysis with a marketing technology client right now, and we're having a ton of trouble getting in touch with both won and lost accounts, mostly because of like churn on the customer's end. You know, the person that bought the software is no longer there, so the person that's in their shoes is like, I don't know why we bought this, you know? So we're having a lot of that same trouble. I think you can offer incentives to get, you know, people in the door and willing to talk to you. There's really no, I guess, I'm not morally opposed to that by any means. I think there is, like, if you have a good strategy, though, you're going to want to include, and you kind of run into what I'm talking about, which is like, we just can't get anybody to kind of sit with us, or not enough people. You have to pull in other areas that you're willing to like use to talk to customers. So what we're doing specifically with this customer is we're really working heavily with their customer success team, who know the customer better than anybody, and asking them about, you know, these specific areas. We're treating them a lot like the customer, and asking them the same questions. We're mining all the gong calls, chorus calls that we can find for those customers, you know, specific sales process. We're doing a lot of external research, so we're having to be a little bit scrappier, I think, than we normally would be. But I think if it's like everything's normal and we're just not getting responses, I would say one of the things that I've found to be helpful is using your customer success or sales team to do like a warm introduction and say, hey, it's been a couple months since we spoke. How are you doing? By the way, I want to introduce you to somebody who's going to schedule some time with you. And then that's been very helpful as well.
For a quick follow-up.
Yeah.
You mentioned about not getting, maybe you aren't getting enough response. Do you have a rule of thumb for what you think enough is?
Yeah. I've got some good insights from anywhere from 3 to 5. I think the general rule of thumb that I've heard is that you start to get repeats and the things that you hear at around 7 to 12. Anything more than that, you're kind of wasting your time. It's too much. Anything less than that, so like that 3 to 5 range that I just mentioned, you don't have as much clarity, but I mean, we don't always get what we want, so making use of 3 to 5 is better than nothing, in my opinion, so.
Do you have any tips for just starting a career in product marketing? If you don't have a lot of experience, how do you get the experience, and kind of where do you go when you start?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I first got my first job in product marketing, I went from KSL to a marketing technology company. And the way that I really build myself was like, I am your target audience. So product marketing's job is to understand the target audience better than anybody. I know I'm very teachable. I can learn all of these things that will be done day to day, but I have the thing that you can't teach, which is, like I talked about earlier, kind of that deep customer empathy. I think what I mean by all of that is to say, just really understand your specific strengths and your background, understand like what pieces of product marketing you're most excited about, and then really look for roles that capitalize on those things and look for leaders who are willing to teach. So that's one of the things I asked in that interview process as well, is like, you know, I know that this is my first product marketing role, and I'm really eager to learn, like, how willing are you to teach me and, you know, give me those opportunities to up-level myself, and I luckily found a leader who, you know, still is one of my favorite leaders to this day. I think, you know, good old-fashioned Google, that like those organizations that I talked about, Product Marketing Alliance and Product Marketing Hive, they have so much information about product marketing, and, you know, probably too much, you know, it'll make your head spin. But I think consume as much information as you can, know your strengths as a marketer specifically, and know why you're excited about product marketing, and do a little bit of like a messaging analysis for yourself. Like knowing all of those things, like what do you want someone to know about you, and what would you want what's the right context for you? What are you going to say, in that cover letter and in that interview and stuff like that to really highlight those strengths?
Thank you.
Yeah.
So what was it that interested you in moving from traditional marketing to product marketing?
Yeah, so I actually have my degree in journalism from the University of Utah. So a lot of the skills that I learned as a journalist are similar to what I do as a product marketer. Looking for good stories, understanding the audience, that customer empathy, even interviewing customers, all of that good stuff. So I actually I was doing a lot of like demand generation, growth marketing, generalist marketing stuff, and just kind of like fell into product marketing because I read the description and was like, I didn't know this existed. I didn't know I could just do all my favorite things in marketing in one role. I thought I had to do all this other stuff to get to do my favorite things. So yeah, it was just all my favorite things. I really like to write. I really like to, do all of the research-based stuff. I really love actually like the stakeholder alignment and cross-functional work and process management and all that good stuff too. Yeah.
When you were talking about building out your product framework,
Yeah.
you said you would need at least like 8 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
That's to build the strategy.
So that's like strategy's already set. We know the deliverables, we know the messaging and positioning. That really is just to give the team time to work. So on that, let's see if I can even just really quickly go back. On that list of deliverables, you can see it's extensive. So you can see it's cross-functional, and we know this isn't the only thing that those teams are engaged in. So we're working with like our revenue and content teams. They probably have 14 other things that they're doing. So it really is to manage their time to make sure that we're not just like taking over their world for, a month. Instead of taking over their world for a month, we're spreading out the work to 8 weeks to make it so that they don't have to, put the brakes on everything. And we know that it just takes time to, like write a good case study or conduct sales enablement is another one. We need lots of time for those things.
When you have this finished,
Yeah.
what's like a good rule of like enough time to get out to market before the product's ready? Like the due date that it's released, is that when you want to start marketing it? When you want like a month before? Like what's
Yeah.
your feel for that?
I usually, so once that release deadline's established, I usually start with adding 2 weeks on top of that. That leaves them time for like deadlines to slip, and it leaves time for like it to be in market for a couple weeks, and like maybe some bugs are figured out or whatever, and then we can take it to market. It just eases the product team's mind, and it eases my mind because I just know deadlines slip. Sometimes I'll learn about an organization and say like, oh, we actually need to add 3 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever it might be. But yeah, 2 weeks is a good rule of thumb I found.
So you want to be ready to go 2 weeks, and you even still you launch your campaigns 2 weeks prior to the release date?
2 weeks after.
2 weeks after?
After, yeah, you can start some of these things will launch before. You can start building up buzz. Maybe there's like a piece of content that's like more education based that you want people to start using. You want to start building up SEO. Like you can start building buzz for these things, talking about an event that's going to be happening, but all of that really needs to hit about 2 weeks after launch or release. Yeah. Anything else? Yeah.
So we've talked a lot about situations where product marketers is working with the sales team.
Yeah.
Probably in more of a B2B setting.
Mm-hmm.
Curious, in a B2C or e-com setting,
Yeah.
what would you share with us on how product marketers in the e-com space
Yeah.
can also find success?
Yeah, for sure. I think all of the fundamentals stay the same, but the nice part is you don't have to probably deal with as extensive of, launch timelines, and you don't have to deal with some of the stakeholder management. So all of those critical pieces that we talked about at the very beginning of product marketing, that one of the very first pieces that I shared, which was like the definition of product marketing specifically, all of this stays the same, except for maybe your sales is now like your e-commerce manager or the website itself. But all of this other stuff is critical. So you're going to be thinking about your product, but your product is going to be just like, you're going to talk about it differently. But I think we talked a little bit about this when Creatively was up here kind of talking about like how we're seeing kind of a little bit of a convergence of like B2C and B2B marketing and how tactics are similar and creative is similar. And I think that's because we're always just talking to people, you know? We all want to be entertained. We all want to be excited by things. I think B2B, you're convincing someone to put like their reputation on the line by buying a technology. B2C, their motivations are just going to be a little bit different. So just knowing your customer.
Let's give Megan a hand. Jump down to this last slide again. I think we covered a lot there. Okay, so again, thank you everyone for attending. Feel free to hang out and network for a little while. I think there might even still be a little bit more food there. And if you haven't thought about it yet, look forward for May 17th. Hopefully we'll see you out here again. Okay, and again, thank you to Megan. This is great.